I'm having a laugh here with Professor Alfred Omenya. We're just talking about life in general. And perhaps I'll just start, first of all, introduce him. Professor, karibu tena sana to Radio Generation.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, movie.
Right. Yeah. And I was just asking you rather, what's happening in this West African region where we're having coups after every few months? We're hearing, like just the other day we had Guinea-Bissau.
Right.
What's happening in those countries?
You know, I think one of the things we take for granted are the structural systems and how they're put in place over long periods of times. So, for example, even here in Kenya, we assume we govern ourselves through a system. Yet there are actually histories, that established very powerful structural systems that are very difficult to change. And that is the same thing that happened with West Africa. West Africa for many years was considered to be, those countries were considered to be provinces of France. And indeed, literally all West African leaders were French citizens, although they came from West Africa, including even people like Leopold Sedar Senghor. Those early days, he was a voter in France.
In France?
Yes, and he was the president of Senegal, as it actually were. Yes, so we see a pattern there that France, of course, has always had very, very strong interest in who rules there, and they literally impose the leaders, as opposed to, say, the English world. We sort of do the same thing,
yes,
but thinking that we are totally free in ourselves, and you see a pattern that way. That it is basically a particular clique that are allied, in fact, sycophants to Paris, that end up becoming leaders there, and their loyalty is not to their people;
it's to Paris.
Is to Paris, and I think that's partly why the military, every so often, whenever they're unhappy, they kick them out quite happily. But also remember, France also props up some of those military rulers. So that is also their way of doing things.
Yeah.
That if they're totally unhappy with the democratically elected governments, they also prop up the same characters.
They decide who becomes president there.
Exactly. And they do that largely through the military rather than the ballot.
Yeah.
And we see that pattern. There's hardly any French former colony that has never had a coup. Yeah. Really.
Because if you look at, and you'd think that perhaps those countries would learn when we had the wave of about 3 years ago, the Burkina Faso, I think it was Mali, Niger. You'd think that perhaps trend inaenda, let's start behaving before that virus catches us.
Correct.
They didn't.
But you see, the problem is that they're the same people, whether they're in the military or running democratic governments.
Yes.
They're all puppets of France.
Yeah.
so there's no learning. The only issue is that who is in charge at different points in time.
Yes.
Does it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, before I introduce our next guest, also a question about what happened last year here. You remember when we had the Gen Z protest, and I think at one point the president and CS for Interior did say that there was an attempted coup, that uprising, that Gen Z protest wasn't genuine.
Correct.
Do you think that perhaps we would have ended in a similar situation?
I don't believe so. I actually don't believe so. I think the military in a lot of the former British colonies, if I can call them that, are quite different, and they're quite autonomous, and they're less politicized than the military in the French world. Of course, there are areas where, unfortunately, once you cross the Rubicon, coming back is normally difficult. We see that with Nigeria, we see that with Egypt, and so on. But we see that with Sudan.
Yeah.
But for many countries, I mean, you look at Zimbabwe, you look at Malawi here, you look at Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and so on. We relatively have a relatively non-politicized military that tends to not have such big appetite for power. They enjoy being in the military. Yeah. But immediately you politicize the military, it becomes impossible to go back. And that one, in fact, in the Kenyan one, of course, they are experts in this area. The so-called Tonje rules in the military are credited with the stability of the Kenyan military. That you can actually be a professional soldier. You know when to leave. You know when to rise. Yes, there'll be some considerations here and there in terms of who becomes a general and who doesn't, but the systems are put in place and they're largely watertight. So I think because of that, then you end up with a situation where there is less, to some degree, less politicization of the military, and that way then, of course, we have this issue where appetite for power becomes a lot less.
And then lastly, our neighbor Tanzania also just, I think it was last week, claimed that whatever happened during the election violence was also another attempted coup. And this was said by the president, Samia Suluhu.
Exactly. It's the same because Tanzania also has had a very long... and that's why I was talking about structural systems. Because what happened in Kenya and what happened in Tanzania, if that was happening in some of these countries we're talking about, there would have been a coup, actually.
Okay.
But why wasn't there a coup? I mean, we can't take 70 years of a particular political system and a particular way of organizing the military for granted. Yeah, that creates structures that requires a lot of imagination.
Yes.
And a lot of power for you to tilt the apple cart.
Yeah.
But you see, I mean, if the tradition was different, there would have been coups here straight away.
Okay. We have also the MP for Wajir South Constituency, Honorable Mohammed Adow. Mheshimiwa, welcome to Radio Generation.
Asante sana.
Yeah. You just found us talking about what happened in West Africa recently, Benin. There was a coup which was foiled, according to the interior minister there. And the professor here was just telling us that it is because of their colonial history that perhaps they are facing the current problems. Yeah. But anyway, let's get back to what has brought us here. The development and versus marginalization and the state of the nation. Much from your perspective and where you see it, the president did have a State of the Nation address a couple of weeks ago, where he painted a good picture from his perspective, but analysts and other individuals, experts in economy and politics, were probably saying that that is not the case. And I also saw, actually, after that State of the Nation address, a lot of several members of parliament rather, from the northeastern region coming out and say that perhaps he has forgotten them because he didn't mention anything to do with that particular region in his speech. I don't know what you make of that particular statement.
Well, I was one of the MPs who spoke as soon as the president had finished his State of the Nation address. And the feeling was and still is that the president's speech had largely ignored northern Kenya. And we're coming from the point of view that Kenya is one nation and it needs to move together in terms of development. There are regions that have been historically marginalized, who have had very little investment from the center and for so long that they're lagging so much behind. And even in terms of development indexes and indicators, those are the regions that are pulling Kenya down. And so when the president started talking about the dualization of roads and highways and, started heaping so much on the other parts of the country that we felt had already been invested in much more than the region that we come from, we were miffed, and we went out there to say, look, this is not fair of the president. But that's not to say that we are in total disagreement with the entire speech. I mean, there was a great vision there from the president.
Yeah.
Amazing insights and what he is thinking about. And it's by dreaming, by having that vision, that usually nations and nationalities get to where they want. The president is on the right track. But again, as I had said that day, I'm saying it again, there are obstacles to the achievement of those grand ideas. Yes, they have worked elsewhere. They've worked for the Asian tigers. They've worked for the Gulf countries. They've worked for even some countries in Africa. But we have the elephant in the room, corruption.
Yes.
Which is fast becoming our national culture. And unless you deal with corruption, you cannot talk of being a first world country. And again, all those trillions that the president had said he will put aside, again, from different places, investments, selling off, state property and all that, as a taxpayer, first and foremost, as a Kenyan, what surety, what guarantee do I have that money is not going to go into the wrong pockets? So you have to deal with what are the obstacles to us getting the development we need and deserve. And corruption has always been an obstacle and will still be an obstacle to the president's dream.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wholeheartedly welcome the vision of the president.
Yes.
And if we are to get there, we have to remove all these obstacles and deadwood from our path.
Help me understand, because in the State of the Nation address, perhaps there was no mention of the North. But does it mean that the North has been abandoned, or there is no development taking place there?
No. Far from it.
Okay.
I mean, look, since devolution, we've had billions being pumped into northern Kenya. We had state marginalization to begin with. And today, in many parts of the North, we have self-marginalization. The very people who are elected to lead the people, and I'm talking about the leadership of county governments, are marginalizing their own. So the speed with which we would have developed and emerged from the back burner has been slowed down by the massive corruption in the county governments. Yes. That I'll tell you. So we cannot entirely blame the center this time round, as we used to in the first 50 years since independence. That said, however, the investment from the center up until President Ruto came to office has not been far from what used to happen in the Kenyatta Moi era. Kibaki made some change and gave us at least the first 100 kilometers of tarmac ever seen in the region. Uhuru, there wasn't much. Actually, Uhuru fought us to the extent that he fought the education system, which was the only thing going for Northeastern.
He fought you. He fought the region.
The region. He fought the region because what else do you make of 5,000 teachers being returned back to Nairobi with a stroke of a pen, leaving schools and students without teachers? How else would you put it other than marginalization being brought through the back door?
Prof, you'd like to chime in?
Yes, definitely. I think the issue of marginalization, particularly of Northeastern, but not just Northeastern. I think we need to actually discuss this matter of marginalization, honestly, from first principles, because the country did accept that indeed, regions have been marginalized. Of course. In different levels or proportions. The Northern Frontier District, you can even see the name and the denotation.
Yeah.
These were extremely marginalized places. Yes, we have these layers of marginalization that one has to look at. I mean, coming all the way from colonial times, and we must ask ourselves, why was the colonialist interested in using this tool? And why should we stop it? You see, of course, the colonialists wanted to extract resources and wanted as little opposition as possible. And the tool they used systematically was the same thing that we're talking about here, was marginalization. You looked at places where troubles would come. You looked at places where, there were resources and so on. And, the colonialists totally rearranged this country, even ethnically, in ways that are mind-blowing. When the colonialists were arriving in Kenya, the biggest community was Maasai. By far. Yeah. By the time the colonialists were leaving, Maasai was not even top 5 of the community by numbers. And these things were done on purpose, actually. Yeah. So we need to, of course, there are areas where the colonialists put in a lot of resources. And the putting in those resources there for their own benefit. It's not like the colonists liked the Kikuyu so much that they put resources in central Kenya or the Kalenjins, the Rift Valley. The colonist was extracting from there. And that's partly why some of us were quite excited with what Mheshimiwa is highlighting here, when that structural history and geography of the country was going to be addressed for the first time ever. And that was in Kibaki's time. I told people, let us look at the geography. We call it geography of development, but it's actually geography of marginalization. How come, resources were put on the railway line? If you look at the communities that were living on the railway line, they were the communities that were developed, largely.
So was
from the coast all the way to Western Kenya. And whether it was the Kikuyus or the Mijikendas down there, or the Luos, or bits of Masai land, all the way to Western Kenya. The guys who were on the north of the railway land was left for their own, to their own imagination. And Kenya comes up with this interesting idea that why don't we use exactly the same tools the colonialists used, but revert them, so that we create another powerful railway line in the Lapset area.
Okay.
And we started from Lamu all the way to Ethiopia. Through the so-called Northern Frontier District and so on. And we push resources those sides. And we create a special plan that really was going to deal with that marginalization.
Okay.
And ambitious investments that were saying, look, this will not just rival what the colonialists put in the south. It will actually shift, literally, development of the country to the north. And it wasn't just shifting it to the north, it was balancing the country's development, because the entire north and its huge potential, whether it was in agriculture, in the mines, and so on. And ironically, we have rivers running all the way from his place there. People normally think that, Bandera, Wajir are just some deserts. They're not. We actually have rivers there. But there's been zero investments in those areas, So this was starting to address that. Then we end up with devolution, which was the second layer of starting to address this particular matter.
Okay.
To say, look, let us devolve resources to to all these areas. Then we go ahead and introduce Article 56 of the Constitution and start defining marginalization. And then we start saying, no, money must be put in these different areas and so on. So what one would have expected was that there would be such a radical change in the political behavior of our leadership in the country, particularly at national level. But what happened? The forest changed, but the monkeys remained exactly the same.
Yeah.
And doing exactly the same thing. So nobody is talking about these things anymore.
Okay.
Even after we had seen their potential, not just to bring in some of these areas and some of these communities into the fold, but actually we had even seen the potential, and we're just ignoring that. There are things that disturb me about this country, by the way. They're the invisible Kenyans. Those are things that disturb me in this country. When we're negotiating political issues and political positions, it's a big five. I used to joke that Kenya has big five animals and big five communities, and then there's no difference between them. It is the Kikuyus, it's the Luos, it's the Kambas, it's what the rest. Someday I employed a girl in my office from Burji, and nobody had ever heard of that tribe. That's the marginalization we're talking about. There are communities that are invisible in this country.
Yeah.
There is no infrastructure in their places. There is no education in their places.
Actually, now that you've mentioned, I'd like Mushba to finish on the point
I have
of...
not finished, yes.
Yes. On the point of, the stroke of a pen, teachers were...
5,000 teachers were brought back from the region on the claims that there was insecurity, and were told welcome to Kenya once they arrived back in Nairobi. That happened at the TSC headquarters. That was the single biggest blow to the region, and that was done by the Uhuru government. The Uhuru government also started the issue of disappearances of people, just people being taken from their house in the middle of the night and then finding themselves thrown in rivers after being killed, with no information being given to their loved ones. That was also another issue. So what the people of Northeastern and the Greater North appreciate about the government of President William Ruto is that for the first time, the road that every president in Kenya had promised since independence is under construction. There are segments that are yet to start, but hopefully very soon we will see, machines and contractors on that stretches. But the fact that the road is actually under construction has really made many people there see that there is a huge difference between the past and the present. The other issue was the removal of vetting of IDs, which was a huge problem. We have 80-year-olds born in this country who've never taken an ID card just because of the vetting system. And young people who want to go to university but cannot because they do not have ID cards. Now, those two steps that the president has taken has really endeared him to the region. That said, however, the region is still in need of much more investment. And we're also seeing a balance, a better balance, I would say, in the way the national resource is being divvied up today more than ever before. And I'm saying this because I have a front row seat to it. For the first time in my constituency that had less than 2% electricity coverage, we have 1.9 billion shillings in energy investments going on in my constituency. This was unheard of before.
When did it start? Now the development, the investment in the power.
It's ongoing.
Yeah,
it's ongoing right now.
Okay,
mini grid stations, upgrading of existing stations. A lot of work has gone. A lot of money has gone into.
And it is big. It started with the KK government.
It started with the Ruto government.
Okay.
Yes.
So for 3 years, you want to tell me there's a very huge chunk, a percentage of people who lived without power in Wajir.
Since independence. I'm talking about less than 1% coverage in my constituency.
Okay.
That's the reality for most parts of Northeastern.
Paul, there's something you need to understand.
And you're talking about
some of these things. The colonial government actually legalized this marginalization. There were ordinances and laws that were passed specifically to marginalize
those regions,
that region. It was considered an economic wasteland. If you have the first government school being built in that entire region in 1946, it tells you just how marginalized they were. It was deliberate. It was deliberate to the point where it was. Why do you think it was called the Northern Frontier District? It was, laws were actually created to ensure that that district was like a separate part of Kenya. And you needed permissions to go into NFD. People from NFD needed permissions to come into
the rest of the country.
Yes. That is what happens when you create laws. 3 separate laws were actually created to ensure that this was done. Now, the Kenyatta government did not do away with it.
Correct.
It should have. How do you have a citizens of a country requiring a pass to actually leave that particular place to come to the... How?
Actually, Muga, beyond the colonial government, it was the Kenyatta government that laid the foundation for marginalization through session paper number 10 of 1965. And, curiously, it was about establishing a foundation for promote political equity, social justice, human dignity, and economic growth with equitable distribution of resources, yet forgot about completely a huge chunk, more than a third of the country, forgotten about.
Mheshimiwa, he was building on what had been laid by the colonialists, beginning with the ordinance that actually created, it was called the Outlying District Ordinance of 1902. That's what started it. And then they created the Closed District Ordinance of 1926. NFD was a closed district. Then the Special District Act of 1934 just cemented it. What he did with the sessional paper was now he gave it legs. Yes, he gave it legs by pretending that they were creating something that would benefit the entire country. But the northern part of the country was completely and absolutely ignored.
Forgotten,
every time we talk about marginalization of that particular region, I thought it was just the government has ignored. So when we are planning on roads, we just don't talk about that region. Let's talk about the rest. When you talk about hospitals, let's not talk about that.
And Bovi, to be honest, if only we paid attention to that part of the country, what you're talking about, the president talking about Kenya being a first world, would be realized, because land never tilled since the time of Adam, the first man. Livestock, all these camels you're hearing, live there. We have cattle, we have goats and sheep. And then when it comes to the budgeting process,
and it's arable land,
nobody talks about livestock. There are no I mean, they established the livestock marketing board the other day and gave it only 50 million. Is that for tea? What is it for? 50 million. A board that is supposed to deal with a sector that has the potential to turn around the economy of this country. We can easily be exporters of beef and mutton to the world. We have the wherewithal. The only thing that's been lacking is investment in that sector.
And it's actually very short. And
then agriculture. Israel is exporting to many parts of the world. Israel is smaller than my constituency.
and drier.
Smaller than my constituency. Yet is exporting to the world. And you can imagine those huge tracts of land in northern Kenya, which and the water is just down there. We're sitting on the Merti aquifer that comes all the way from Samburu, Isiolo, Wajir, and then crosses over to Somalia. This is water you can bottle at source.
It's that clean.
You can bottle at source. And it just takes about 250 meters to get to that water. Yet, and then look at every time there's a drought, first followed by a flood, and all those waters doing nothing but sweeping away our cattle and donkeys. Nothing. No reservoirs for storing that water so people can do meaningful agriculture. So it's like you are so fixated on land that was being tilled for thousands of years and cannot produce without fertilizer. That's why the song of fertilizer is so common on the floor of the house. Yet you don't hear about livestock unless it's we from the region who are up in arms, talking about why. We're always asking why livestock. And again, I don't know whether they need electric shock or I don't know.
Actually, the reality...
They don't hear about... They don't want to hear about livestock.
No, they don't want to. You see the
World Bank projects. Let me say this. The World Bank projects that have been brought here to this country that are to deal with livestock management issues and marketing issues and investment in livestock sector. Guess the counties that are benefiting from these projects. Places like Siaya, Kirinyaga, all those places, yet abandoning and totally forgetting about.
But
Professor, help me understand why.
That is a problem. It is politicization of development, and incidentally.
But we have politicians coming from. We have governors, senators, MPs, MCAs coming from that area.
Very, very true. But remember, at the end of the day, it is really about who is running the country, whether we like it or not. It is who is the president, who controls, budgets and so on. It's basically who's running government, as it actually were. And what Mohammed is saying is true, and this is a notoriety that we have to stop. Yes, he's talking about benefiting from livestock. Now that I can flip. When the president, former president Uhuru Kenyatta, did economic stimulus, it was fisheries was being done in central Kenya, and meanwhile we have the entire Lake Victoria and we have the entire Indian Ocean. So I mean, there's some things that we really just have to call out in this country. We take these things to ridiculous levels. Yes, there's some cows and goats I see in Siaya.
Yeah.
But Siaya is not a cattle producing area.
We are not pastoralists.
We are not pastoralists at all. We know the pastoralist regions. So if we're going to develop that, we know the regions where that would happen. I have no problem when coffee is being developed in central Kenya, because it comes from there anyway in the first instance. And this is a problem that we actually had, that we politicize our development. And then the problem is that now we don't even see the potential that the country and the region has. I've spent quite a bit of my time in northern Kenya, particularly Mandera. And it's amazing, just with even before you dig into the aquifers and so on. River Dawa has water between 8 to 9 months, and it floods. And it's huge. That water requires zero imagination to just retain. Zero imagination. But why won't it happen? It's because we don't balance politics and development. It's because people are walking to State House with lists of requests, and depending on who wields the power, we actually ensure that our taxes, go to those places that have been overinvested. At some point, I told some people, and I consider myself to be a non-tribalist. But I was telling somebody that the first time I did a tour in central Kenya, the whole central Kenya.
Yes.
I told my late dad that, look here, please ensure nobody gets into central Kenya. Because if Kenyans know what is inside there, there'll be a revolution. Really. Because there was roads to every single thing. There was power. You're talking about people not being connected. There were powers connected to cattle sheds. There was water on. In fact, some fellows were telling me that, they don't even pay for water, by the way. That if you don't switch off our water, there might be pressure too much pressure in the pipes.
So you let it just flow.
So I was like, which science is that? So my issue is very simple. We are not blaming these people because it's a political economy, and yes, politicians must jostle for development. But it is possible. It is actually possible to develop our country harmoniously and also to balance this political interest. So it's not purely political interest.
Just to support what the professor is saying about the lack of even-handedness, equity, and balance when it comes to the allocation of the national cake, sharing of the national cake. I sit on the Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation Committee in Parliament, and I couldn't understand how, because we're the ones who make the budget for those two state departments, water and irrigation and the Blue Economy and marine resources. I was like, is the policy of Kenya to give water to those who already have it?
Thank you.
Because the majority of the funds meant for the development of water goes to areas where water. And I remember asking one of my colleagues from the other side of Kenya, what is your biggest priority when it comes to water? And he's like, how to stop wastage.
So they have too much.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of wastage of water, and that's his biggest concern. In my constituency, there are people who have never had running water for 60 years. 60 years. There are people who have not had it for 50 years, some of them 45 years. And you're talking about, out of the 7 wards in my constituency, only 3 have got potable water. The rest are drinking water that is filled with fluoride, calcium, magnesium, and all kinds of chemicals and metals. That's what we're dealing with. Yet, when it comes to putting that into consideration in the budgeting process, deliberate budget making to provide Kenyans with what they need, that doesn't happen.
You said at the beginning of our conversation that there is also self-marginalization.
Of course there is.
By the leaders.
I will not hide that.
Right. What did you mean by that?
I meant, look, when devolution came to being and the constitution was promulgated, we got the chance to elect people from within us.
Right.
Our neighbors, people we know as governors and deputy governors and the rest of the county leadership. What we expected from the billions that was poured into the region was quick and very successful development and the resolution of some of the age-old problems the region was facing. Water, for example, is devolved. Why should I, as member of parliament, be dealing with issues of water? It is at the remit of the county government to a large extent. Health issues.
Devolved.
Agriculture.
Devolved.
Yet we have nothing to show for it because the money was taken away in sacks.
The corruption thing that Mheshimiwa was talking about, really.
Okay.
Money is being pocketed by the people who are running the funds for the government. I'll tell you that any day.
It is a problem.
Any day.
But Mheshimiwa, we also have oversight. MPs are in charge of oversight. Senators also are in charge of oversight. Where is your role when funds in your county are being stolen?
What do you do?
You oversight and you report and you follow up and you ensure that these particular individuals who are taking it in sacks
at the end of
face
the day,
the law.
My oversight ends with the institutions that we have. And if the institutions we have are also cashing in on the sleaze that's being perpetrated on the fringes of, the society, the people who are supposed to be running, it's not money that you take, it's also money that you spread across to ensure that you're also protected, then balancing the books. That's what happens. So there is corruption in county governments in northern Kenya, and I'll shout that from the rooftops any day. Yes.
And you think after all these decades of marginalization and the people of that area suffering, the person who is mandated with the governor, let me call him or her, in charge of this situation should be the one.
Them, yes.
Exactly.
But you see, I don't know what you can do, because at some point I thought that we would get Mheshimiwa in Uhuru Park and shoot them. But then the problem is that
you will be shooting so many innocent people.
Exactly. No, not so many innocent people. I don't think that would be enough.
What do you get from shooting me?
No, I think the problem is that there will be so many others who we need to shoot. So at some point,
why would you want to shoot them, Professor?
To eliminate corruption.
It's not them who are the problem.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That in fact, Uhuru Park might not be enough. So that's why I gave up. That's why I gave up on that idea.
Actually, it's a chicken and egg kind of story.
That is why I gave up.
Is it the Kenyan public perpetrating corruption, or is it the leadership perpetrating corruption?
Good question.
Let me tell you the truth. At some point, I had to have a fight because there's some things I just found bizarre. I really was relatively broke, but I happened to have been chairing a school board, and I was doing an arambe to support the school. So somewhere along the line, of course, I'd given some decent amount of money, but then I'd this Mzungu friend of mine who comes in and gives over 1 million Kenya shillings towards the arambe. So peer pressure. My buddies there told me, you and the MP, can you lead this thing now? Whatever you gave was too little. So I literally had to borrow money from my wife and children to put the money there. But to cut the long story short, as we are building, you know, we get help from the politician. And they steal the money. You know, I was so furious. I was like, what do you mean? You're stealing my own money, and which is going to help your brother and sister. So we are very sick in this country. We steal from the sick. That's just how bad we are.
Yeah.
We steal whom we know. We've known them. We've known their names and their faces. Yes. We steal from our brothers and sisters whom we actually know. There's a big moral decadence in this country that, of course, even if it doesn't go, we have to speak about it. It is totally incorrect. It is totally wrong. And yes, we can shout as much as we want. The planning is okay. You know, we can put resources where we need to put them and so on. But this whole idea that every Kenyan must steal is noxious. We just don't see how bizarre it is. Yeah. And you know, when you're campaigning outside there, ordinary poor people steal from them. It's true. That is how bad the thing has become. You know, you give these villains some little money to share amongst themselves. The guy disappears with it.
Because honesty is so...
Exactly. So these are things that our leadership from the top must come back and reinforce and say, look here, really, you will not steal from people in the church. I don't know about the mosques, but I know they steal from the church. You will not steal CDF money because it's taxpayers' money. And immediately we say there is no theft. In fact, there'll be resources in this country. Then the next thing we say, let us be efficient. You know? And the third thing that I really want to say, which is stealing from ourselves. I'm so annoyed about it. You see, you run a household, but you somehow think that if you deny your wife resources, that somehow is going to be beneficial to you. That if you deny your children school fees, that it'll be how will it be beneficial for you? We only have one Kenya. There is no way that investing in Northeastern will hurt Omenya or will hurt Ruto. In fact, it will actually develop him. It's one Kenya. That's our arm.
Yeah.
There is no way that investing in Turkana is going to harm you. There is no way that investing at the coast will harm you. But you have this stupid idea that let's invest in the left leg. The right one, even if he's sick, it doesn't really matter. After all, I spend most of I'm right-handed. I'm left-handed. I kick
or left-footed.
Exactly. But when we have a pain in the tooth in this country, we all feel the pain. We know about insecurity in northern Kenya. When we have insecurity there, the whole country gets affected. It's in our interest to do that.
In that same breath,
when there's wealth and reaches that side.
When you deny education to the children.
Exactly.
In the north,
you are affecting the whole country.
That falls on the border of what has been until recently a largely lawless country. Then you are preparing the recruits for the hotheads that want to wreak havoc on us.
Exactly.
That's why investing in education, investing in developing that part of the country would act as your first line of defense.
Exactly. I agree.
You are first line of defense.
I agree.
If the people are happy, they have something to lose, then they will be the first people to protect this country.
Actually, what you say,
and again, it's the right of the people of that area.
Right also, it's not a favor.
You're not doing them a favor.
Yeah.
It's the right of the people of Northern Kenya.
Can I ask you two gentlemen a question?
Go ahead.
What do you think is the role of the citizenry in all this? You see, everything that people discuss regarding development begins and ends with the president. The president can't build the country.
True.
He can't.
Very true.
He can't.
Very, very true.
Each and every individual, irrespective of what the station is,
has a responsibility.
Yes, exactly. So, what is our responsibility? Because
can I have a crack at that?
I want you to have a crack at that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Look, as I said, we have a chicken and egg situation when it comes to who is waging corruption and where is it coming from. The leadership gets blamed all the time. And then again, the emphasis, as you said, on the president to do everything. He's one man. I mean, he has the machinery. He has the government in terms of the different institutions and all that. But the responsibility, as you rightly said, is on each and every one of us.
Right.
More than anything else, first of all, to do what is right and to obey the law.
Correct.
First of all. And the second thing is, there is poverty in Kenya. In some parts, it's debilitating. And in most parts, even in Nairobi, we have some of the, most despondent people when it comes to poverty. But again, do I sell myself short because I am poor? We grew up in poverty.
Yes.
We grew up in poverty. Garissa was largely made up of villages where the poor lived as I grew up. And we did not go out of our way to go and look for politicians and stand on their doors and beg, because that, was against the dignity of our people. But we are increasingly seeing people conditioned to seek favors and handouts from politicians. At the election, it's who pays most that wins the day. There are people who stand outside polling stations waiting to be bribed so they can cast their vote. And voting is also done along ethnic lines. When you have leaders who have emerged through this situation, and again, even when they come into office, the begging continues. This is what is fueling some of the corruption that you have seen. People want to stay in power for long, and they know that if they don't have the money to give to the masses, they're not going to make it. And that is why you see a lot of pilfering with state resources and people clamoring to grab more and more and more, because that has become our national culture. And I say this because I've not only seen it from outside, I've also seen it from inside. As a journalist, it's one of the most, the biggest critics of politicians and all these things. Now that I am inside and I'm seeing it from inside, I sort of sympathize with those who think, to a certain extent, sympathize, that this is how they have to, because that is how the game is being played by the public. So what we need to do is just stand back and look at what we will have to gain from leadership with integrity, people who are honest, who would look after state and public resources, people who are more about developing the people they represent. That cannot be achieved by voting through ethnic lines. That cannot be achieved by getting induced. So politics with integrity and the public have a lot to offer in ensuring this kind of situation prevails in this country. You cannot just blame 349 members of parliament and senators and leave almost 50 million Kenyans, unscathed when it comes to sharing the blame.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, Prof.
I actually agree with you. Yes, we talk about, and I agree with Mheshimiwa 100%. We talk about the presidency because I think it's the most visible or whatever it is. But however, society is organized, that we have different spaces of power, including this space we are in. There's power that you actually have here in this station.
Yes.
That ordinary citizen outside that doesn't have. We have the media, we have the universities, we have political parties, we have women groups, we have churches, we have all sorts of spaces with different degrees of powers. We have the academy. I keep forgetting about them actually. One of the biggest letdown, even beyond the president, are our universities and so on. If you look at all these things that are being practiced all over the world and being analyzed, those things have been analyzed by largely academic institutions and media. They're the ones who are normally at the forefront there. We don't expect the president to be the thinker, to be the analyst, to be the planner and so on. After all, being in the universities, we know the records of some of these people. So we expect that other sectors of society would support them accordingly. But I want to speak to just two things. We also have professionals in this whole thing of different formations. The guys are just quiet. Doctors are quiet. Things are going wrong in the medical field. How am I meant to know? Mimi ni mtu wa mjengo. How do I know what's happening in the medical field? But the doctors are quiet. They expect the president to do something about it. How do I know what's happening in construction? If the architects and the engineers and so on are quiet, how do I know that there's a haste in the roads and so on? If the engineers, they are quiet, how do I know that the economy of Kenya is not running the correct way? If the financial analysts, the economists and so on, and there are many, are all quiet. So I agree with Mheshimiwa here that we need to step up to the plate as a community, and we need to start taking that responsibility, individually. Let me tell you two very simple but illustrative cases.
Okay.
A student comes to me. These students had not done any of their thesis, and the student tells me that, look here, Professor, I know you're the one who's doing the marks. The student had not, his work was not passing level. So he said, look, I mean, I've been around here for quite some time. And I know you can help me. Just get 40%. That's all I need. And then I
just need to get the threshold.
Then I leave this place. So I asked the guy that, so is this your idea or is it supported by your parents? So he said, no, of course. My dad knows about it, and I told him that I was going to talk to you. And yes. And the truth of the matter was that, yes, I'm the one with the marks. I talked to this young man. So I told him, look, the reason you didn't get a passing threshold is very simple. For me, the learning had not really happened where we could actually say that you are reaching a passing grade. Number two, how would learning hurt you? If you learned, how would it hurt you?
What harm would it cause you?
What harm would it cause you?
If you actually went through the process.
If you went through the process. Number three, I am the one in charge of it. So I can even help you go through the process. I've not refused to help you go through the process. How much longer will it take you to be able to complete that particular process? So look here, I'm willing to even help you during the holidays to work on your thesis and bring it to a point where it passes. And I was honest, I was available, really. I'm a very good reader. Reading one student thesis is nothing to me. And I was able to convince the student to go through the process. But it tells you the Kenyan mentality that yes, huyo Omenya tukimpatia kitu kidogo, I'll pass. But you can imagine what it does to this student. That is when you sow the seeds of theft and dishonesty, and it stays with this person forever. This person will become a PS, this person, but they know that they're actually stolen. I had another case where one of my relatives decided to go and register their son, who was in an academy here. He was registered in the village. It's only that the guy's wife had some sense, so said, let's talk to Professor. I think he knew that I was going to stop it. So
why did he register the child in the village?
So that he could get the village quota to go to the national to go for national schools. Because in the academy they were going to get like 50 A's, because in the academy also they have other ways of
it happens
passing.
a lot. That happens a great deal.
So then they register this guy in Imbo, so that he can take the space of the poor kids in Imbo there who don't even have a classroom. So again, I sat down with him. I told him, look here, I know this boy, and I think this boy is quite sharp. Of course, the boy will end up going to national school because he sat exams where he didn't learn and took that, whatever. But what you've done is that the boy would never get to know whether he had the ability to pass exams or not, or whether he got this opportunity because he stole from the poor, literally. So don't let the boy stay where he is. We have networks. Mtiani kisha toka, we shall make phone calls. If at all the boy is not admitted. But let me tell you, that boy sat in a private school, was admitted to Mangu High School directly, without anybody's intervention. And as we are talking, the boy is a professional. He's very happy, and his own brains got him where he is. He did not have to cheat the system. My point is that the main things that can be done, the problem we have is simply a problem of ethics.
Shortcuts.
It's shortcuts. It is this thing where we basically want to steal from each other.
Is that the problem, or is that the manifestation of the problem?
It is, of course, it's a manifestation. It's a manifest. Like we're saying, this thing manifests itself in all sorts of different ways. And that's what I was saying. There's something happening in the media in a particular way. There's something happening in families in a particular. But then we normalize these things instead of saying no.
Why do we normalize these things?
Because of that same story of this young man.
Because it has been because the law of the jungle
exactly
applies to our lives.
You see people doing those things and succeeding. That's a problem.
Prof, people speak of corruption as though it's a problem. Corruption is not a problem. Corruption is a consequence. The problem is impunity. When you know full well that nothing will happen, you are then encouraged. Laws are not created because people are good.
True.
Laws are created because of the understanding that inherent human nature is exactly what we're discussing here.
Yes.
Now, fidelity to the law, that's where the example of leadership comes in.
Exactly.
But laws work because we all have an understanding.
Correct.
An agreement which you haven't written that will abide by it.
Yes.
That's how laws work.
Exactly.
Now, the moment we go against that understanding, and if we go against it you want to say something?
And remember, CT, I'm just adding to what you're saying there.
Yes.
Laws are not meant for our convenience.
No.
A lot of the things that we do are not really convenient for us.
No.
But they're the right things to do. And it doesn't matter whether it is in the church, whether it is in the family, whether it is... A lot of things we do are things that ordinarily we not really want to do. But they're the right things to do. Whether the moral codes and all those sort of things. Today, let me give you this example, CT. Today I knew I was coming at 7. I needed to be here just a little bit earlier than 7. Today, my son was going for a rites of passage event. That was to start. They were to be dropped at 7:30. At 7:30, I'd made the decision that I'll drop him myself. My wife was not to be the one to drop him. What did I do? I called the guys organizing this thing. I talked to the boy, and I asked them, "Can I drop this boy between 6 and 6:30?" But that's 1 hour earlier. And I said, no, there's a place I must be at 7
daily.
And the guy in charge of it said, no problem, it's a bit early, but I'll try to come at that point. I woke up this young man at 5 o'clock today. In fact, I went to make breakfast to encourage him. So 5 o'clock I wake up, I get this young man to eat, I drop him around 6:15. I drop the guy 1.5 hours earlier. So I could be here by 7. Was it convenient for me?
No.
It wasn't convenient for me. But on the other hand, that was the correct thing to do in that situation.
Prof.
But this is what we do. Impunity is just what you're saying. Where I can stay on traffic for 5 minutes. And get to where I'm going instead of overlapping. Blocking people and so on is impunity. I agree with you.
Professor Omenya is very, 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 very excited about this conversation. But most importantly, we are having a very interesting and important conversation. We're talking about the development versus marginalization and the state of the nation as presented to us by the president a couple of weeks ago. And Mheshimiwa, there's something I wanted to ask you before we get into this whole corruption issue. How did the shifter war of the 1960s play into what is currently happening as far as marginalization is concerned, if at all there's any connection?
Well, there's a great connection because when the rest of Kenya was celebrating independence, the people of the north did not. They were very eager to rejoin their brothers in Somalia.
Yep.
And mainly because they thought that through integration with the country that had been, they had been put under by the British was not going to be possible. They saw it, that look, we're better off with the people who, we look alike. Yes, we can understand each other than big government from far away Nairobi.
Okay.
And they started the clamor, of course, with the tacit support of the Somali Republic, which of course had gotten independence before Kenya. Arms were supplied from Somalia. There was a lot of political support from that end, and it was the policy of the then government of Somalia to reclaim the lands it had lost. When the British and the Italians had hived off chunks of land, given them to Ethiopia, and the French Somaliland, which was then Djibouti of today.
Okay.
So that Shifta war, as it was known, Shifta is Amharic for bandit.
Okay.
So this is something probably that was gotten from Haile Selassie because of his close friendship with Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And what followed was the scorched earth policy that the Kenyatta government visited upon the people. The banning of villages, the villagization of people, Vijiji. They were put in Vijiji, which were, more or less like open-air prisons.
Yeah.
The killings, the rape, concentration camps. All that, is part of the dark history of that region.
Okay.
Right. And it informed the policies with which successive governments dealt with that part.
Okay.
The 3-mile strip, Tana River, which was in the Constitution, and still is. That northeastern starts 3 miles away from the Tana River. It was one of the things that was put in place to ensure that the river stayed in Kenya in case the north succeeded in seceding as they wanted at that point. And all the other policies, the collective punishment, which saw massacres from Malkamari massacre, Wagala massacre, Garissa massacre, and all the other human rights atrocities that were committed in that part of the country. So yes, there was a propaganda station at VOK at that point, whose only role was to cast doubt in the minds of Kenyans about the people of that region and their patriotism, to casting doubts on everything they were about. So that had a very lingering effect and continued up until the Kibaki government. Kibaki was a gentleman, I must say. He changed a lot, not just in perception, but also in investment in the region. With Uhuru, it was like 3 steps back, if not more, because he fought the education system, saw the people as people who were an enemy to the state, and through forced disappearances and the killings and maiming of people in the name of security, especially after the Westgate attack.
Yeah.
But we're seeing a much different reality today, I must say.
Okay.
And this is why many people in the northeastern region today feel better with the leadership of President Ruto.
All right. I'm getting to know a lot, Professor.
Yes.
I'm learning a lot. Some things I didn't know, some of them quite disturbing.
Right.
Like what, for instance, Paul?
Again, I will go back to the first hour we were having a conversation with Mwesh, and he was talking about the fact that for a very long time, up until the Kenya Kwanza government took over, about 2% of the population in his constituency were the only ones connected to power. I am shocked that in 2022, because that's when KK government took over after being sworn in, that's the situation. Yet I have had power in two of my ushagos, because my mom comes from Machakos and my dad comes from Kitui. We've had power for a very long time.
Yeah, but
so I was asking, how comes?
But if you look at that historical context, which you have to understand, the governments of the day, in fact, as part of the history there, basically there were different regulations that were put in place during that Shifta war to govern northern Kenya, and they were not easy regulations. Of course, there were curfews that were put in place. concentration camps were introduced. Concentration camps are not for development. Concentration camps
for the opposite
is exactly for the opposite reason.
By another name.
Exactly for subjugation. That's what it's purpose for.
Subjugation. You can imagine. I think it's difficult for people to visualize these concentration camps, but basically you concentrate humans in a small space and have security forces, basically around those spaces so that they don't get out. These guys are pastoralists; they need to roam, So even that bit of pastoralism basically just died. And new regulations are being put. When are these things being put in 1966?
Yeah.
They're being put in 1966. They didn't change in Kenyatta's time at all. In fact, I think around after Moi had come in, those early days, there was another threat. I don't remember what threat it was, but I remember the military flying to northern Kenya. To sort of show might that should there be any attempts at Kenyan territory. So my point is that we end up with this continuum that then is not stopped, in a systematic way. So, of course, the Moi regime continues with some of the treats, the so-called NFD.
He said Nyayo. Exactly. He was following the footprints of
the Nyayo regime. They continue with the same bit. So that was saying that as a country, it is just the other day that the mindset changed, where we're saying, no, we have to deal with security anyway, just like any country must deal with security around its borders. But this is our place, and the only way it will shift is through development.
Okay.
And of course we entrench some of these things now in our constitution, including those things we're talking about: the education, the basic services, and so on. Protecting these areas, recognizing them as marginalized, putting resources outside there. And then of course I always make reference to the LAPSET development and the National Spatial Plan.
Right.
Where now as a country for the first time we're saying no. This region represents our biggest potential, for the next hundreds of years.
How far have we gone with that project, Professor?
And that's my disappointment. That is my disappointment with the Ruto government, because as far as I'm concerned, government can do whatever government needs to do, and it's very important, and we can get a bit of taxpayers' money up there and so on, but. I feel pained personally because the thinking behind LAPSET from a spatial and economic plan was mind-blowing.
It was very sound.
Exactly, and totally sound. We're saying we're going now we're starting in Lamu with a proper port whose capacity cannot, in fact, will never fill up like the Mombasa port. It's limitless, literally, and it's deep sea port. Not even Durban will compete in terms of that potential. Meanwhile, and then we're saying, fine, we'll be having these other towns that are also centers of logistics, like in Isiolo and so on, and then we'll be connecting, to Ethiopia, and then get open up this huge livestock market, outside to the Gulf region and so on, and enable this to happen, in a very meticulous way.
Okay.
Coincidentally, because I think God also likes good intentions.
Yes.
As we're having these intentions, then oil is found in Turkana, and there's oil. Then water is there. Then we are thinking about the largest potential farms we can actually have in this country. As it is, people live in plots. In central Kenya, they live in plots. In western Kenya, they live in plots in Kisii. Plots. This is farmland. It is 50 by 100, and people pretend to be farming. So the only place where we could get hundreds of acres for farmland again was in the north. So for me, honestly, if I was running this country, one of the things that I would move quite quickly with is the LAPSET idea, and start offering leadership and unlocking everything from regional cooperation to the different components, be it rail, be it the pipeline for oil, be it
Prof,
the opening of Lamu.
Why do you think this LAPSET thing hasn't moved?
Two things. Well, okay, 2 or 3 things. You see, LAPSET, number one, is not easy in the sense that it requires a bit of government investment there. Number 2, LAPSET is very, very huge, generally. So again, it requires that big investment is brought in, and that type of investment is very, very difficult to control and corrupt. because it's almost like a government, as it actually were. The sort of monies that are being looked at for sections of LAPSSET are running into trillions of Kenya shillings. And I know for a fact that there are very many investors who want to get in there. But the truth of the matter is that the scale of it is very difficult for your average politician or even the leadership of the country,
Professor,
to sort of corrupt it. So in a way, it's difficult. It's a difficult job, but it's doable.
Meaning, if it was corruptible, then it would move.
Yes and no.
Gentlemen, Mheshimiwa, do you want to talk about the LAPSSET?
I mean, look, I think the project is still going on.
It's going on.
In some parts, it's still going on. And the decision to make the entire road tarmac, I think, has really given a boost to the project.
Right.
Because at first, some sections of it were not tarmacked. And that would have been a very big... because, again, with all the flooding and all the... wouldn't have been long-lasting. I think it opens up a section of the country that really needed to be opened up. And where so many things that can be exported can be found, particularly livestock. And it's a great idea. It's just the implementation, which is very slow process. If only they could hasten the pace with which the project is being done, then we will have realized the dividends, the economic dividends, far too early.
And we have to make noises about it because this, we have the huge potential with northern Uganda, with DR Congo, which really, hosts a whole lot of resources here. With Cameroon, LAPSSET connects us.
Landlocked.
Exactly. And they're actually landlocked, so they need us. LAPSSET basically connects Indian Ocean across to Atlantic Ocean on the other side. It is one of the most powerful logistical corridors in the entire continent. That's number one. But the second thing that people don't realize about LAPSSET is that it is also the corridor that, thanks to historical reasons, we've not had what do you call them? Predators.
Predators, yes.
We've not had guys stealing from there. If you look at the Lobito one in Angola, the Americans took it over donkey years. Most of those corridors were taken over as logistical corridors and for exploitation. LAPSSET is the least exploited corridor. So even for our own sovereignty, LAPSSET is actually one of the best places to develop, for the simple reason that we don't actually have these predatory foreign powers lingering around to do it. So that's why I think whatever we do, the LAPSSET dream must not actually stop, and is not just for the benefit of Northeastern. I look at LAPSSET as basically going back to the colonialist and saying, you built the Northern Rail to exploit Uganda. Through Ibeaco, Imperial British East African Company. Now we have an African company, and we're doing the North and see what you can do for our people for economic development.
And LAPSSET is also crucial to intra-African trade.
Exactly.
Trade between African countries has been lackluster and not much to write home about. But with LAPSSET and this kind of infrastructure projects linking up African countries, then it makes trade between these countries even more possible.
One of the abiding problems that we have with intra-Africa trade in logistics. It's expensive to do business.
There you go.
Now, LAPSSET, if you talk about the dream and the vision the president has about Kenya being a first world country, that particular project should actually be his focus.
Exactly.
Because with that focus, given what we do with Uganda being our largest trading partner, we'll be able to do that with Ethiopia, and we'll move on to what you call Central Africa, and that will connect us to West Africa.
Exactly. And it's interesting that you're saying that, because just the other day, I think that was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we're getting this disturbing data that is basically you bring in goods from the US to the port of Mombasa, and getting them from the port of Mombasa to Uganda, just our neighbor here, costs you almost 2,000 times. That's how ridiculous the thing is. It is that ridiculous that it's cheaper to actually logistically, it's cheaper to bring goods from the US to the port of Mombasa than get it from the port of Mombasa to Kampala.
Yeah.
And not by 10%, 20%. It's by those ridiculous percentages.
There's a question.
These countries are a logistical nightmare. And Kenya is the best, by the way. We haven't gone to DR Congo here and Central African Republic and so on. My friend, even getting milk from your neighbor.
There's a question here by Eric Odhiambo, and this one is to Mheshimiwa. So Eric Odhiambo anasema hivi, but why is Mheshimiwa conveniently avoiding talking of insecurity issues in the NFD, and why those from that region choose to invest in other parts of the country and not their own region? How would you respond to that?
2 questions in one. I am not avoiding talking about insecurity in Northeastern.
Yeah.
I am not.
True.
And again, the North is much more safer today than it's ever been. Insecurity is at its lowest.
That is very true.
And crime rates, are some of the lowest in Kenya. That said, however, there's always the possibility of incursions from that other side.
True.
And our military is doing a fantastic job. Our public are working with the police, and I mean, insecurity can happen anywhere. It can happen in Turkana. It can happen on any border area. The same way it can happen in Northeastern.
Yeah.
But there isn't much insecurity, and this is one of the stereotypes. Kenyans like banding around that there is insecurity and all that
in the area.
And then, yes, Northeastern is not synonymous with insecurity.
Correct.
Yes.
There's much more happening there. And when it comes to crime rates, it has some of the lowest crime rate in the country.
Mheshimiwa, let me just add what you're saying.
Yes.
There is an extremely direct correlation between education and crime. Areas where education has not been proliferated, like in the northern part of Kenya, you'll find most of the people who are considered bandits are not only young, but they have not gone to school.
Right.
Instead of going to school, they are bandits. The moment someone has education and they can see the progression of it and where it would take you to.
Yes.
Remember, banditry is a business. You need to understand this.
Right.
Okay? It is something that they do as a part of earning a livelihood.
Correct.
Okay? Now, the moment somebody has a mind that has been opened, then possibilities that you couldn't see before that education now become possible. So you start thinking of other things to do, which are far less precarious. That correlation is the same. We talk of unemployment among youth. Why is it that you find that there's an upsurge of gangs within the country? Old men don't form gangs, they form cartels. Young men are the ones who form gangs. Okay, you could call those cartels gangs. And why? What do they have to occupy them? When they do not have something gainful, then you have the problem. These are not things that are difficult to see or understand.
And let me just add this to Mheshimiwa. I've done quite a bit of work in the north, actually. And I think, again, we must disabuse ourselves of this nonsense that there's no... that's nonsense. Despite all these insecurity thing we're talking about, I mean, you go to Wajir, you go to Mandela, they're thriving. People are building supermarkets, people are investing in hospitals and so on. People are actually investing in those areas. But to flip it, and that's partly why we must interrogate this rigorously. I've seen quite a bit of business expansion, not just in Nairobi. I come from Bondo, but in Bondo the supermarkets there are largely by people from the north. I've seen that in Mombasa. I've seen that in Western Kenya. But if we flip it, we say this is one country. So who says that Luos must only invest in Nyanza and Kikuyus must invest in Central? And Giriamas must invest in the coast. Let's flip this thing the other way around. That let us learn from the Somali community that they go to these places that your ordinary Kenyan has been told are tribal places where nobody else can invest. And they work with those communities. They don't just invest there.
Prof,
our members of parliament are from the Somali community, and we have no problem with it.
If I can just play the devil's advocate there, why then the saying charity begins at home? And now this one I'll direct to Mheshimiwa, because I haven't gotten his answer.
Yes.
And I'll be very careful to ask that question again because I've not been to the northern region like both of you. Actually, three of you. Is it true that perhaps what Eric is saying in terms of the development in the area, that the locals...
No, this is the issue of shifting goalposts.
It is
on one hand, we are told we are not integrating.
Yes.
And then when we go to the depths of this country to invest and employ Kenyans...
What are you doing here?
We are told, why are you investing here? Why don't you go? It's not that we have abandoned Northeastern and we are not investing there. Northeastern towns and settlements are growing exponentially. There is massive investment there. You will see supermarkets that you would never think about.
You will see
hospitals,
schools,
you will see homes, estates,
exactly,
all the way to Mandera, the farthest end. We are investing in our region.
Let me tell you.
But then any surplus, because these are people who have, against all odds,
very resilient,
come up very resilient, business-like, very entrepreneurial, and then there's also the trust within the community where if today I want somebody to loan me 10 million shillings, it would take me a couple of hours to find
that individual.
Two people, or maybe one of my friends would easily loan me the 10 million.
10M.
Exactly.
So raising capital within the Somali community is so easy.
I want your
friends.
That's
why. And that's why it's so easy.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't mean that we have abandoned our area. It's, completely desolate, and now we are investing in other places. No.
Let me tell you.
This is going hand in hand.
Let me tell you. And this you can fact check. I come from Sia, from Jacom's place.
Yeah.
We are struggling to build the governor's office on our 13th year of devolution.
Why are you struggling?
We have no idea how to do it.
You guys don't get allocation like other counties?
No. The allocation, we use it for funerals and other more important things. But so here I am.
Yeah.
I go to Mandela to do some work there, and these guys are built literally. They built not governors' offices, but every single department had these offices. So I'm quite happy with myself.
Okay.
I continue going back there. As we are talking, Mandela has literally built a new city. As we are talking, yes, new city with highways. Whatever they had at devolution,
forests around,
and forests, whatever they had, governors' offices, department offices, and so on, are still there. Then they moved and established a new city, not a governor's office, complete with TVET institutions, 5-star hotels, forests in there, governors, whatever, county assemblies, and so on. I don't know whether there's anywhere like that in this country. So some of these guys, they're also marginalizing their minds. The mere fact that they don't know does not mean that things don't exist.
Yeah.
You can sit there and keep quarreling because you think that the little petrol station in Gidakaine is your only claim to fame, and then you are there fighting the person who brought it, and you didn't even have paraffin, and then you imagine that because the person has brought a petrol station there is doing nothing in their places. I invite Kenyans to go to Wajir, and to go to Mandela and to go to these places.
Right.
Those are the only places where you see the impact of devolution.
There's a question again, and now this one will take us to a different conversation about corruption. Adrian Terry is saying, if leaders can't make this uncorruptible, what City here was saying, why the hell is Kenya government doing anything regards such projects? And I'll connect it to what is on the front page of the Star here about Kenyans losing 3 billion daily to corruption in state tenders, according to a report. And this story is on page 4 and 5 of the Star. Muhesh, there's Abdullahi Alas has just texted me because he's listening to our conversation, and he's talking about the fact that members of parliament are very corrupt, and I remember even the president at one point did say it. So it looks like there's a situation here about corruption that everyone seems to talk about it, but no one is pointing a specific finger to anyone, because even the president was challenged and was asked, nani anafanya kitu na hakusema. So where exactly, how exactly did we move from losing 2 billion a day to 3 billion in the KK government? And what would you say is Parliament's role in this problem?
Well, look, Parliament has the responsibility of oversight. But Parliament, yes, oversight, and then also creating the laws that are supposed to stop this kind of pilfering into state resources. And I think most of that has been done. I sit at the Public Accounts Committee, and we depend on the Auditor General's report. We recommend people to be sanctioned. We recommend people to be prosecuted. But that goes to other institutions. We don't have those rights. We don't have the power to sanction. We don't have the power to prosecute. And somewhere along the way, things get lost.
But you have the power to make the laws that will actually give you the power.
Yeah, the laws are there.
Yeah.
The laws are there. Right now, I'm working on a motion that hopefully it will pass, hopefully, to make corruption a capital offense. Because where it is at right now is so untenable that we will be chopping this country small. Look at losing 3 billion shillings a day. 3 billion can light up the entire Wajir South. I mean, and that's from
one day of corruption.
Yes,
1 day of corruption can light up the entire Wajir South. Or can build, roads leading to many parts of the constituency. I mean, we cannot afford to lose this. And again, this simplistic, argument that MPs are corrupt. As I said, yes, in every institution. Again, this is a corrupt nation. Let's take it. Corruption is our national culture as we speak right now.
It's a growth industry.
Yeah.
Every Kenyan has the potential to be corrupt if given the opportunity. That's what I believe. Because that is what monkey sees, monkey do. We see people doing it and we want to do that. And it becomes very difficult. The situation becomes even more difficult. I am not defending the indefensible. Yes, there is corruption in Parliament. I'm not going to deny that. But the whole political situation becomes so untenable, so unhealthy for those who want to lead an honest life.
For instance, when you say that you have a bill, it's a bill, right?
It's a bill. Yes.
It's a bill in Parliament, and meant to make corruption a capital offence.
Yes.
What would that mean in terms of consequences of individuals caught up in
life
corruption?
Imprisonment. Yes.
We don't kill people, do we?
No, we don't.
Oh, okay.
We don't. Life imprisonment, more sanctions, stiffer sentences for people found guilty of corruption. Because right now, as it is, the penal code, it's not as tough as it should be.
Yeah.
Is the political goodwill there for such a bill to pass?
Nope.
Again, on the political goodwill,
the jury is still out.
In the maandamano last year, the Gen Z protest, as we like to call it, one of the biggest issues also that the young people were agitating for is the fact that they want the power to be able to recall their MPs. And from IBC, what we understand is that there is no legal framework. I really can't remember the words that Erastus Ethicon used, but he was saying that, it's very difficult for that to happen.
The threshold is just out of,
Yet we have members of parliament that some Kenyans would be unhappy with and perhaps would like to recall. And then again, we go back to you having the power to legislate and make it easier for Kenyans to be able to recall their MPs. What would it take to have that kind of bill in Parliament, or and even get it to a point where it is passed if indeed MPs are honest in what they do?
You're asking that?
I am asking it. Because you are the individuals who are supposed to legislate for us to be able to exercise that particular right once it is given to us in the Constitution.
As I said, again, it's now our national culture.
Right.
And everybody eats where they work. that's how it goes. Yes, as you said, if Parliament was honest, we would have a situation where these things become possible. And I think the responsibility should be felt in such a way that if the people of Wajir South today wanted to recall me, I should make it possible for them, because if I am not doing the job I'm supposed to do, if I'm working against the interests of my people, if I am not functioning and leading them the way because they've already bestowed their trust in me and confidence in me, I think it's only fair that we give them that leeway, so that if they feel unhappy, and that's why it is in the Constitution, that right to recall your leader. But again, when you look at the conditions for achieving that, then it just becomes,
it's impossible.
A daunting task. We need to make these things easy for the people. But again, we're not going to have, under the current prevailing circumstances. I think I'll just leave it at that.
What is the role of the citizens of this country in setting right all these things we keep talking about endlessly? Because it's either the president who is blamed, Parliament is blamed, Parliament as in the National Assembly and the Senate, and then the backlash is, but we come from you people. So we are in this together, whether we like it or not.
I would, Citi, I would look. It's the way our politics
It is. It is. Our politics, because we've created it that way.
Yes.
You know why I keep going back to this one question?
The public
seems not to want to take responsibility for what they should do. They prefer to blame it on others, and yet
it's laziness.
But you see, Citi,
Professor, if you would allow me, please. Look, it's laziness on the part of the Kenyan public.
Is it laziness, really?
Well, for lack of a better word, I'm calling it laziness, because what they're doing is they want to continue doing what they are doing and expect different results. You cannot elect people on ethnic basis and expect them to lead you well.
Ethnic basis at what level? Because when
at every level. Because right now, when we're talking about the arithmetics for getting the presidency, we're talking about regions and we're talking about tribes.
You see, you're talking presidency.
And no, I'm also talking about at every level, because even in Parliament, those who get elected are elected along ethnic lines, or through inducement.
But brother, an MCA from my region, he has to be from. He's my cousin.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, Citi, one of the things.
There's something you're trying to say here, and I think I haven't understood it. Please explain. What are you saying?
Look, when leaders, I'll put it another way, when leaders are elected on principles, on their integrity, on their track record, on what they have achieved in their past lives, because they don't come out of the ground that moment when they're seeking re-election. There are people who have definitely must have had a past. If you do not use integrity as the gauge in which you're measuring leadership, if you just elect every Tom, Dick and Harry who gives you unga, then you're not going to get the leadership you deserve, and you're not going to get what you need, and you're not going to reach your objective, of being led better. The public, I reserve the biggest blame for the public. I reserve the biggest blame for the public, because these leaders did not emerge out of thin air. They were elected by people. They have a responsibility.
Let me just say, we can blame the public, but on the other hand, we need to look at the nature of our society. I think in Kenya, generally, we can talk about elite institutions and elite detachments, if I can call it that way. People, yes, understand that some of them have a role in government, but people really don't think they can do anything about government. People think, at some point I ask people that, do you think if the government today decided to do with the University of Nairobi, do you think people from Kibra will come and demonstrate against it? They won't, because we actually we created, in fact we inherited colonial institutions that were never really people's institutions. In fact, you never see people in those institutions. I've worked and studied in different parts of the world. Communities do their things inside government institutions like universities. That's where the communities meet and so on, and they understand what's happening there. Communities understand what's happening in government. Community understand. People normally ask me, Omenya, why are you so bothered about how government is spending his money? I'm like, no, it is my money. And you can imagine, I'm so well educated, and the people asking are actually professors and so on. There is this distanciation, there's this disconnection, there's this discombobulment between the people.
Is that really is that word English, combobulment?
Whatever it is, I was looking for a big term to use. But you see,
you wanted a superlative.
But people are so disconnected from the institutions.
Can you spell it so we can see whether we can add it into the dictionary?
You know, and I'll give you very basic examples. You know, before, Kenyans were just happy that police were not harassing them. They never even bothered what exactly are the police to do for them. You know, you are happy that your child was admitted to a school. You are not really bothered what you're entitled to in that regard. Now we're talking about these things like that. People don't realize that it is actually their money. It is. You tell a poor person in the village that actually the 3 billion that we're talking about here is daily. You know, they say, Omenya and Mheshimiwa, they just talk big things. What does this have to do with me? So there's this disconnection.
Prof, they actually
and we need to
they actually understand it is their money. It's not that they don't.
No. But there's lack of immediacy. In fact, that's why I'm talking about the disconnection. You see, if somebody steals from me directly, if somebody gets my wallet, I react immediately because I know that no, this is my wallet and I'm entitled to it. But if somebody steals 3 billion, you try to get people outside there to say, okay, fine, guys, our money is being stolen. Like Omenya.
I would rather ask a question. Do our people understand what it means to delegate power?
So now we need that reconnection. That's what I was getting to. That the ordinary person in the village.
Education.
Exactly. We need that civic education so people so that we bring back immediacy again. So that when money disappears in government, I can't sleep as Omenya, as a citizen. I can't sleep because our money has vanished. But then you see, here we just come and chat. Oh, is money in Nairobi? The very senior politicians in this country were saying government is a big animal. It is too much. These are people talking about looting, but nobody would dare tell them, why are you planning to steal my money? Because of that disconnection. When you're talking about, we're talking about 3 billion. 3 billion is 40% of our annual revenue. And if you add the waste, we have enough money to sort out our debts and do these different things and start doing development. But I'm telling you, even down in the village, I was sitting in a board. These guys come in, they tell me they've done a classroom for 6 million Kenya shillings.
One classroom.
Aye. And there are people there who had never questioned it. And I told the guys, look here, you tell me. They said, no, these are very special classrooms, the tiles. I told them, look here.
A single classroom for 6 million.
Yes, let us do
That's
calculations.
A whole school.
I built a whole school with that.
Exactly. Let us do calculations. Our classroom is 1 million or less. You can do a whole whatever.
The first room is the only one which has 4 walls.
But then
the others next to it have 3 walls. Yes.
This is a school whose principal has a PhD, whose chair of the board is an engineer. And I say, why couldn't they just stop and ask this guy, why are you stealing our money?
Maybe they've never visualized 6 million.
Oh,
they understand.
An engineer who has been a former PS has never visualized 6 million.
Okay.
And
when you put it that way now,
a principal who has a PhD has never visualized 6 million. No, the thing is, we just look the other way. And in fact, ask the guy to build for us another classroom for 6 million because of that abstraction, because of that disconnection. Because they say, after all, that money will be stolen. So as long as it's being used to do something in our place, I'll look the other side. But this is what I'm saying. Kenyans, we are so disconnected from our realities that when things are happening outside there, be it exaggerated salaries, we don't bother because it doesn't affect me. Yeah. When money is being stolen somewhere else, it doesn't bother me, but and so on. When bribery is being done by politicians.
Prof, you're describing.
But you are describing. Bribery needs two people.
Exactly.
Yes.
The giver and the taker.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that we've normalized the abnormal, and then we've distanced ourselves. You're not realizing that this is actually our money, and that's why I was using that example.
Yeah.
When a thug comes and takes the money directly from you, there's immediacy, there's connection with that money. But when is money for CDF that is stolen, when it is money for building local roads that is stolen, somehow people distance themselves.
It's a disassociation.
Exactly.
How much of this corruption,
yes,
at the leadership level is conditioned by the demands of the public?
Same.
That's my question.
You know, you have spoken like a true politician.
Yeah.
Because no, I'm not. Mheshimiwa is my friend, so he will understand where I'm coming from and why I'm saying he's spoken like a true politician. Politicians are the only people in this country who have the ability to look at the truth for what it is and then shift it in a manner that paints him in a good light. Yes.
No. It was a wholehearted discussion, honestly. Because I face it on a daily basis.
But
Prof,
when handouts are more treasured than development, and I'm talking about life-saving development. City, let me say this. I'm itching to say this.
I don't disagree with you, but please say it.
Exactly.
When development ceases to have the importance it should have to our people, when handouts are more desired than development, when leaders who have gone out of their way to develop their constituencies, their wards, are removed at the ballot because somebody else ended up
better handouts,
outspending them. That is the kind of politics we have. So you would not. I mean, look, I am never going to justify. I'm never going to justify people who go corrupt because that is what the public needs. But again, we are not going to have the right kind of leadership if we continue on this trajectory. And it's time to go back to the drawing boards when it comes to our political culture.
See, Prof, I was saying that is inconvenient.
Yeah.
These things that you want to do, not just for the politicians, these things are inconvenient, but you have to do them.
Prof, I want to get into a different conversation. We have about 9 minutes before the end of the show, and it's on the issue of the privatization bill. Recently, it got a couple of people, someone in trouble actually, that is Honorable Robert Mbui. He was kicked out of Parliament because of the situation that brought about the debate. First of all, what are your thoughts on the Privatization Act?
I mean, it depends on how it's implemented and which...
Did you vote on it?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I voted for it because you know, in the scheme of things, in this. And for us to increase and expand our economy, I mean, it's good, but again, it's the implementation and what you do with the runaway corruption in this country. That is my fear.
You know, Mheshimiwa, this living long is a good thing. I remember when there was a process brought about by these Bretton Woods institutions called structural adjustment programs.
Yes, okay? SIPs.
Among the things that they brought to bear on the government, then the Moi government, was something similar. There was no privatization bill, but it was like disinvestment.
Yes.
That's when the floodgates were opened. Railway houses were either sold or given or whatever. Poster houses, government. We had institutions that had been run by ICDs like Africa Tours and Hotels. So many things that had been the bedrock of this economy and which worked suddenly went to the dogs. I lived through it. I was old enough to understand it.
Poster, telecom.
Yeah, Precisely. They are and then come to Agricultural Finance Corporation. It started affecting things like agricultural ADC. It started affecting things like Kenya Industrial Estates. I mean, the ripple effect took us back. It didn't take us forward.
Yes.
So, from that experience, when I hear that somebody is looking for a legal way of selling public property, I'm asking a simple question.
Wait a moment.
Is there another way we can raise money without selling these things?
Exactly.
Yeah. With the risk of oversimplifying it, a lot of us come from the villages.
We're all villagers, essentially.
You get concerned when this man, every time he needs money, he sells the cow, he sells the bull, he chops off a piece of land and sells it. He sells the very core assets that defines that family. And to me, these are the fundamentals, really. And I agree with you 100% on this CT. And that's partly why I believe that there's a lot of lack of imagination. Really, there's a lot of lack of imagination in this parliament and even with the government. But I don't think it's lack of imagination. I think it's either criminal negligence or just theft and looting of public resources. You remember when it comes to this privatization thing, at some point in Uhuru's time, you remember there was a proposal of getting one of our worst performing, it's not even a parastatal, it's a private organization called Kenya Airways, to run Kenya Airports Authority, which was one of the best performing, government entities. It was that stupid, and we tolerated it. The fact that we even tolerated and fathomed that, and we've seen even with this government the best performing assets that we actually have. You can argue however much we've been arguing with friends, how much dividends the government getting and whatever it is. But if you look at the Safaricom issue, for example, communication is strategic. Safaricom holds so much strategic information for this country. It holds listed. Our data. It's listed. That's exactly. And yes, listen. Now you can imagine when you seed your state as a nation to such a strategic investment. And the question that we're asking is that, yes, it is okay to be very foolish, but at least ask, are there other fools like you? Check South Africa. Have they sold their telecoms? Check Nigeria. Check Egypt. Check any country in Africa that is full of fools. None of them has ever really let go these strategic communication bits of it. So Kenya, we are special foolish that we actually want to offer leadership in the continent in selling our assets in one of the most strategic investments any country can actually put themselves in. And this, leave alone even how you make money out of it or not, this literally the soul of this country as far as investments actually concerned. But my bigger point still is that I am actually convinced that there are many ways of raising the sort of monies that we have than simply basically getting rid of strategic public investments that we have in this country. I don't support actually selling off of strategic assets, and linked with that, of course, we mentioned this is also being done at the wrong time when people are incredibly corrupt who are running government. When we pushed our corruption from 2 billion to 3 billion every day and so on. Honestly, when thieves are running government and we are saying this is a time to sell our strategic resources, it's not. It doesn't make sense. It is actually stupid. Really, it is irresponsible. I don't even know
how to put it.
How to actually put it.
There's a question.
We don't have to sell at all.
There's a question here for Mheshimiwa from Josiah KJ, saying, considering what happened during the shifted times and the situation now in President Ruto's term, kindly ask Mheshimiwa how he rates the level of patriotism among the locals.
Residents of Northeastern or Kenyan Somalis,
right,
as they are called, Actually, that hyphenated identity doesn't go well with me. We are Kenyans at the end of the day. Kenyans in Northeastern are patriotic Kenyans. And you can tell by how they are the first line of defense for this country. They're the ones who are working with security forces and all security organs to ensure that this country is safe. And over the years, they have occupied a special place in this country, and we are as patriotic as every other patriotic Kenyan. And we've been even at the thick of all the problems that have been visited upon us, the massacres and all that. And yes, there is more sense of belonging now with the lifting of the vetting for ID cards and the massive construction of infrastructure in the region by the current government. For once we feel valued as Kenyans. Something that wasn't happening in the past.
Right. Lastly, as we exit, President Trump recently made some, very derogative statements towards, Somalis leaving, and I think it was Minnesota. What do you make of such statements, and how do you think that?
Well, I think Trump promised so much during the elections and hasn't delivered. Including dividends from the tariffs.
Correct.
And many other things that he promised. So because of these failed promises, when leaders can't build, they ban, and hatred usually becomes their fuel. So Trump was looking for a boogeyman to divert the attention of Americans from his failed promises. And that is why he saw in the Somali people, black, Muslim, the perfect boogeyman, the perfect targets.
Perfect combination.
Correct. True.
Islamophobia, as we call it.
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, we have come to the end of the show. Thank you very much, Professor Alfred, for I know.
2 hours.
That was 2 hours. And of course, Mheshimiwa, asante sana for making time to come. We invite you again. There's another conversation that we need to have. And for me, it's about the Somali way of doing business. Lately I've been meeting, and I've been in these particular spaces where I meet for example the Isili business community, the Somali business community, and I think there's a lot I'm learning from that, and I think perhaps that information should be shared to the rest. So let's talk to the locals of the north and see if we can steal a few ideas here and there. All right, gentlemen, don't go too far, and ladies of course listening and watching, don't go too far. We'll be right back.